I'm muting somebody. Who am I muting? There you go. Charmaine, I muted you. Nothing personal. If I mute you guys, it's nothing personal. Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Ready?
David, take it away. Yeah. What do you got?
All right. So this can be super informal. If you have a question, feel free to wave at me or just interrupt is fine. I'll go through. So I guess Max and I have identified a number of different areas that we could make the tool a little bit more efficient. And the first chunk we're taking off is rent roll processing. I know that can be pretty time consuming, and there's a particular format that is kind of the vertical format. I'll show you here in a second, where you have like the tenant and then some like their rent and trash and pet and things down from there. And those are really ugly to try to convert. And so I have 3 different formats that I've got that are all that similar type, kind of the ugly vertical format, so to speak. I'll just go through one of them, but this should work for any rent rolls that are in that ugly format. And if we have other types of ugly formats, so to speak, we can build some other converters, so to speak, for that. But so I'll share my screen so you guys can just follow along. Everybody see my screen? Yeah. Okay. So as I build things for you guys, or whether they're in the tool or out of the tool, I try to put an instruction sheet that's pretty easy to follow. I link to various spots on the sheet to make it real easy to jump around. So this instruction sheet just has instructions to process this rent roll straight top to bottom. And so we'll kind of go from there. So this is one of the ones that Max gave me. This is from Lexington Park, is a practice rent roll to use. And so you can see it has one unit and tenant here, but then it has multiple different types of revenue here. And we need to essentially isolate the rent per unit and square footage and things like that. So some of that information we have horizontally, that is unit number, type, square footage, market rent, so on. But then we have rent can be in different spots. Sometimes it's here, but in this case, it's the second line here and so on. So, kind of ugly to do. So this first step, can everybody see this text okay, or should I enlarge it? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Adler. Yes, please.
A little bit bigger.
Oh, yes, please. Okay, go ahead, Adler. Yeah, he's like looking. I see you getting close to your screen there, Adler.
So the first thing is,
and then just I'm sorry to interrupt, David,
please.
but click back to the Lexington template and notice that classic. See how unit 1 has only 3 lines and unit 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Annoying, right? That's the other part of that. You mentioned it. And there's 5 lines, right?
It's the worst format of rent roll.
Yeah, that's right, Adler. Okay, go on.
Okay, so this is to make this really simple and upload it into the underwriting model. So the first thing we'll do is copy the rent roll data that you get from the broker, owner, or whomever, and put it into the input. So we'll take all of this and just copy it. And I'm assuming, I know you all work in spreadsheets relatively regularly with this, so I'm assuming a base level of spreadsheet knowledge. If I go flying past anything, just wave at me and I'll slow it down. So we take this and copy and paste it into the input tab, cell A3. So all of these, I call them jump to links. These are links, hyperlinks to this same document. They'll just jump your cursor to a new tab and a new spot to make it really clear where you need to put stuff. So if you click this here, it jumps you right to the input tab, cell A3. So this is where we want to input that rent roll data first. So we'll paste it right in here. And you can see some of this stuff hides when you're on the right path. So the second step, this is not necessary, but just makes it easier to work with. I know like the T12 and different things that you guys do, you hide some columns sometimes that are extra just to make it easier. That's all this is, but basically just hide the columns to the right of the rent roll data and left of the helper column. So this again will jump you to there and automatically highlight these cells for you, these columns rather. So here's the rent roll data we just pasted in. Here's some of those extra columns, and I just say hide up there to help you know which columns you can hide up to these helper columns here. So we'll hide these. I'm going to put some images in here to make it a little bit more straightforward to do this stuff. I haven't done that yet. just some screenshots of some arrows and different things. But so now we're going to go to this range again in the input tab, and we're going to essentially map wherever information is in the columns in the rent roll, we're going to map it to these hard columns because we need to know where unit is, we need to know where unit type, tenant, and so forth. So you can see they have unit in column A right here. So we can just put A right here. Unit type is in B right here. Tenant is in F. Charge codes. Different rent rolls, I suspect we'll call these different. They might call them income code or revenue code or different things like that. So we're basically just looking for the different types of income that they have. And if we need to change any of this vernacular to be a little more in line with rent rolls you guys get, that's simple to do. So the charge codes are in H. The amounts of those are in I. The square feet are in D. The market rent is in G. And the deposit is in J. So that makes sense so far for everybody. Relatively straightforward, just kind of mapping them left to right there. So go back to the instructions. Step 4, we're staying on the input tab in column AA. We'll change the dropdown to exclude any sort of non-informational rows, that is header rows, total rows at the bottom, things that we don't want to accidentally sum and have our rent be way off or our unit count be way off or anything like that. So in this instance, if we click on this, this will take us to this exclude column right here. So in particular, probably the thing you guys are going to want to watch out for is total rows like this at the bottom, just to make sure we never accidentally highlight those. You could either just not paste it in here if you wanted to be selective with what you copy and pasted, but for simplicity, you can always just paste it all, and then we'll just come right in here and we'll exclude these. And I've added some conditional formatting that was supposed to carry over here, but it didn't. But just to gray and strike those out so it's kind of visual all the way across that you can see what you're getting rid of, so to speak. And for this one, it has some future residents here as well. In this case, and we may handle this differently in the future, but in this case, both of these units are already occupied above. So these are duplicative. So we're just going to go ahead and exclude these future resident rows as well. So now we have two different maps, is what I call them, where we want to map both the charge code categories as well as the unit types. So first, we're going to go right here. And again, this will jump you right to there, but you can see it jumped us to the rent map tab. And this is a unique list of all of the different charge codes that are in this whole document that don't have exclude by them. So if we go back here, you can see all of these different ones. They have different ones. So this one has, like we said, this has 5 different ones. This has 4 different ones. We have rent, insurance rent, pest control, so on and so forth. And there's a whole host of different ones. So this is one single unique list of those. And now we just need to go select which ones of those we want to count as rent. I believe in this instance, the only one we want to count is rent. The others, I believe we're going to have other income good, other income bad that we'll take care of on the T12. So in the instance, maybe they had, rent 1 and rent 2 or something. You needed to count both of those. You could just put rent right here with a second one too, and it's going to total all those up. So for the sake of example, we'll just put rent right here in this one. So we've told the model that, or the converter, so to speak, that this charge code is rent. So then we're going to go back to here and we're going to map the unit types. And again, we can change what these drop downs are, but in this instance, we want to map all of their units to a little bit more of a manageable unit type for us because we don't know what these are. And we want to be able to compare apples to apples, especially as you underwrite one property to the next. We always want to call a 1-1 or a 1-1.5 the same thing, so we don't have to remember that a 735A1 is a 1-1 or whatever. So you can see this list is relatively straightforward. I think I made this list up. I think you all have used like 1/1 ONE/numeral 1, so we can decide whatever this drop down needs to be. That's fine. But in this case, let's just say this is a 1-1, a 1-1 renovated. We'll call this a 2-1, a 2-1 renovated. 3-1, 3-1 renovated. So this is obviously not a unit type. This came from one of these rows. I suspect it's up top. Yeah, so it's coming from right here. So you can see that's the types of things that'll show up if you don't exclude rows. But if I go in here and I exclude these rows, that unit now dropped off of there.
Cool. And fix that
exclude all the right rows. You should have a list of all the unit types, a clean list of all the unit types. In the event that you don't,
David,
you
make B5. Make B5 a 2-2R. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So we now have all of these unit types mapped to a little bit cleaner, more straightforward type. So now we have one tab that's this output summary tab that gives you a little bit of a gut check that you can go look at how this model is summarizing these numbers to make sure nothing just looks funny. That is, you know, you don't have 400 units of one type, or you don't have, you know, $8 million of rent because you totaled a couple different, or you summed up a couple different total rows or something like that. So if we go look at this right here, oops. So this output summary, this is a summary of all the different types of units we have here, count, square foot, total square feet of all those, and so on. Let me pause really quick. Does this make sense so far? I know I'm going pretty quick, but.
Is there a way, so I love this summary count right now, but what's the total number of units from this right here? Do I know the total?
You don't, but we could add it. Yeah.
Because I'd really like to know that this total matches the total I expect it to be.
Okay. Yeah. Let me, now I have a pen here somewhere. I'll just leave myself a couple of
I want to give you mine. Here, I want to give you mine, but you can't reach it.
I'll add some total rows so you all can compare to a summary sheet that they do.
Yeah, because every OM has the total units and the total square feet. And so that would be wonderful to check right there. So yeah, total would be great. Okay, keep going. So far, I like it. Do you see this, Adler?
Hey, David,
Yeah.
with regard to, is there something here that will indicate the number of vacant units?
The number, you can dictate the number of what?
Vacant units. Is there a way to know? Are there any vacant units here?
I think that's on the output.
It will show the vacant units, but we could add something that would count up vacant units.
Yeah.
The little bit difficult part with that is, from what I've seen, different rent rolls notate vacant units differently. Some just say vacant, some are blank. So
Yeah.
there may be a little bit of a trick to do that, but I suspect we could, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is just a summary of the information there. And this last part, it may change a little bit depending on how we want to update the underwriting model. But the last step is to basically copy this clean data from the output tab, and that's what we'll put into the underwriting model. So you can see right here now on this output tab, we have a clean list. One row equals one unit. So we can see how they number the unit. We can see the type, the tenant, the square feet of that unit, the market rent, and the current rent of all of those units. So this is now a clean rent roll, so to speak, with one unit per one line that we can easily do things with. We can total these, we can average these, we can min these, max these, and so on.
It's good. This good.
This is the part that is not ready yet. So I have made, this probably looks familiar. This is your guys' underwriting tool. I have made a updated tab that works with this new format. But when you go to put in the rent roll, I know sometimes you guys do it from the OM up here, and then other times you do it a detailed view from the actual rent roll. So this is what we're trying to simplify right now. You can ignore the colors. I just have different formulas and different spots. It just helps me keep track of it as I'm building it. But the rent roll now will go into this format, which you can see is exactly the same A through F here, A through F here. So now we can take this and copy it and put it right in here. And now all of this is just going to be done for you kind of quickly. That it will have it summarized. It'll count the total number of these units. Max, here you have a total already on your on the underwriting template here if you want to do the full mix, the detailed rent roll, so to speak. So, so that's generally it. Obviously, I talked through it. It took me about 10 minutes to talk through it, but once you did it, it would only take you 3 or 4 minutes to process the whole rent roll, assuming you didn't have any, anything different than this format. So maybe I'll get some feedback from you guys. I know rent roll can come in a lot of different formats. Some are more clean and some are more dirty like this. My thought is that we maybe have different conversion files, that whatever type of rent roll you have, let's say we have 3 different standard types. We have this ugly kind, we have a more clean kind, and we have a third kind. My thought is that we build a similar converter like this that will convert each, and then each of those types, we always have this exact output. So you can just copy and paste that right into the model, and then you're kind of done. As opposed to kind of the old one was, had all these drop downs and got confusing, and you had to copy paste and drag and drop and do different things. My thought is that rent roll, instead of inputting it like this or multiple different ways, you just always input it like this, which will be the output from different converters. So I don't know if that would be helpful, if you guys don't want additional files to use.
No, that would be very helpful, David. In fact, I like the idea that you started to build your model converter using what I think is one of the most difficult format of the rent roll, in which there's one row and then you have this one column with bulb and then rent. That's very hard, in my opinion. Yeah. Thank you very much, by the way.
Yeah, sure. So I will say one caveat, particularly with this Lexington one. You guys probably come across this relatively frequently, but when you paste numbers, if they vaguely resemble a date, sometimes Google Sheets will try to convert it to a date. That is, 0701 is just probably building number 7, unit 1. But if you paste values, that it's going to convert that to a date. And so be on the lookout for that, depending on how your the underwriting apartment, how they number their units. You got to be careful pasting numbers. And in some ways, there's no way to get around that. We could append a U on the front of all of this, but it will always just say U, 0701 or whatever. And that would force Google Sheets to never call it a date, because there's a letter character in there. So we could do that relatively easily. But I think that's most of it. Any questions on that? I can go through another one if that would be helpful to see the process one more time, or if it seems straightforward. I don't need to use everybody's time to do that.
Yes, go ahead, Wendy, one more time.
Go through one more. All right.
While you're pulling that up, David, Max, do you anticipate this will be something that will be loaded up on AnthroBank like the other templates, and we'll just click in and out of it?
Yeah, I think it'll be. I mean, I heard David say rent roll converter, so our converter, here we come. Because man, this looks cool, and this is even a huge improvement over like David pointed out. We do those. Our quick method had all the drop down lists. I don't know how you did this, David. It looks like magic at this moment, because there's no drop down list. It's you're pasting that in and it's counting them all up.
There's a little bit of clever trickery in there.
I think it'll take some repetition of using it to be able to give you some better feedback, David. But so far, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, David, will your macros work outside of the Google Docs, like within the Excel engine?
No,
Probably
Adler.
not.
No, Adler. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, there's a couple formulas
Stop
that are unique.
it. Break free, sir. Freedom.
Make a note of this. Adler is the problem child. I got it.
I can't
Sorry.
get him to. I can't get him to break his bond with the old Excel, so he desperately wants to download it to his hard
I was an
drive.
Excel diehard for a long time, and
I-
I've come around to Geeks.
Trust me, I feel it. I get you guys. You know how old I am. I get it. Okay, I love that Excel, but at some point,
I know. Yeah. Matt's got to outgrow. I have to
All right, so
move
this
forward.
one you can see is a little bit different format. This
All
one
right.
has some headers and merged, has what, 7 header rows, goes through column O. This one has 8 header rows, goes through column R, and so on. So this all should still work the same. So again, copy the rent roll data, paste it right here. So we'll go to Minds, copy this, paste here. Then number 2, we're going to go to the input tab and hide the columns. So if you click this link, it's going to automatically jump you to the input and go ahead and select them. And then you can just right click and hide. Next, we're going to use the drop downs here to indicate which columns are where. So the unit is in column A again. Unit type, they call it floor plan here.
go slower through this, David. Slow
Okay.
your speech down just a little bit and go. Let our eyes find the columns as you're doing it. So go slightly
Sure.
slower.
Yeah. So yeah, A right here, you can see unit, and we're seeing 1, 102, 103.
Got it.
So on.
Perfect.
Unit type, they call it floor plan, but they have B2. Looks like a lot of B2s. If I remember correctly, they may be all B2 on this one, I think. So the tenant is this right here. They have it called name. So we're going to put that in column F. The charge codes, they just call them a code here. Those are in column K. The amount of those is right next to it in column L. Also, just a small little workflow thing, because this is a little bit wide left to right. I don't know what types of computer you guys work on, but I think as long as you use Google Chrome, it works on Mac and PC. If you hold Shift and do your scroll wheel, it'll scroll you left and right. If you release Shift and just go up and just use your scroll wheel, it'll go up and down. So that helps navigating wide sheets. So square feet, I believe, is this column right here. It was a little bit unclear, but you guys may just have to ask clarifying questions at times. But so we'll call that J.
And even though that looks ugly with the decimals and things, that's still fine, huh?
Yep. Yeah, the format, as long as it is a number.
Okay.
Now, if it had, 1315.00 asterisk, Sheets is going to read that as text. It's going to be hard to isolate that as a number.
So would that, if that did happen, you'd have to make that column into a number? You'd have to change format and make it number?
Format generally will not fix that. So like if I put an asterisk right in here, and I go, and I go to format number, it's still going to read that as a text if it has any text character in it.
Got it. Got it.
If that is common, we can put some things in the formula to extract out and clean text from numbers. That is, you can pull out an asterisk or a hyphen or anything like that and replace it with nothing. And so then it'll clean it on the formula side. So I think I actually put the wrong one in there. I believe square feet is right here in column D. So let's change that to D. Market rent, I believe that is this one. They're calling just additional. J. And then deposit, I believe they call that just on hand right here. So that's in column Q. Everybody follow that process? Okay.
Yep.
So go back here. Was that a question? Good. So we'll go back here. We just finished using the drop downs to indicate the appropriate columns. Step 4 is still on the input tab. In column AA, change the drop down to exclude for any rows that should be excluded. So again, you can use this jump to link. It's going to jump you right back to the input to column AA. So again, we're going to get rid of some of these header rows. Jeez. So this one is interesting. It has kind of some, it's either header or footer information, what looks like at page breaks, however their system exports it. I'm going to leave it there for now, and you'll see it just adds a few extra things in those unique lists for the rent map and the unit map, but we can just ignore them and not map them, and then the model will still ignore them. So for simplicity, I'm going to just go down to the bottom here.
So excludes, what's it called? Exclusion? Or what'd you say?
Yeah, just exclude.
Oh, exclude. That doesn't necessarily have to be done. It'll still sort it out as we go through.
It should, depending on what information is in what columns.
So keep going and let's see.
Yeah. So I'll leave some of that header information. Actually, let's leave it all and just test it. So the next step is the rent map. So we're going to go here. And in this instance, it is vertical, but all of these others are zeros and they don't have any charges to them. So on this rent map, this is a unique list of things that have more than $0 allocated to them. So because they have $0 allocated to them all the way down, they just don't show up here because you're just going to waste your time mapping them anyway. So in this instance, I believe this is pulling from a header row somewhere. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So if we found that row and excluded it, it would drop off this list.
But you don't need to, just focus on the rent and call it rent.
Yeah. So that one's going to be rent. I would say be aware if you're going to go back and do more exclusions after this, this list could change order. That is, if I go and find this code one and I go put exclude, rent is now going to move up here. This is not going to move up because I hard input that data there. So if you're not doing the steps in order, just be aware you may need to delete these out and start over, or
So
just
if you go back, if you go back into the steps, you may have to continue back through the steps on your way out.
Correct.
Right.
So in the event, let me just see. Yeah, so it's pulling this from some of these header rows. You can see code under charge codes. It's pulling that from right here. Right here. So if we went and excluded all of these that said code, we could get that to drop off. But for our intents and purposes, it doesn't matter. As long as we don't mark it rent and we just leave it blank, it's not going to hurt anything. So then we'll go on to the unit map. So this is a great example of, we have a lot of extra things here because we've not excluded some of these rows. Because they have different types of data in the same column, it's difficult for this formula to differentiate. So this is just pulling a unique list of values from unit type. So because we have all these header rows, it's just pulling in things that are in that B column. You can see all these different things are in that B column. So we can do one of two things. We can go exclude all those rows and try to get this unit map cleaned up. Or if you know what the units are, for example, I know these are A1, B1, and B2. If I just map those, then that's all that it's going to output. So if we just call this a 1-1, a 2-1, and a 2-2. Now, if we go look at our output summary, you can see it outputs. It's not outputting all those other ones that were here that are just weird numbers and values from the original rent roll input, but the output summary is only pulling these. So again, you can look at this information, kind of give it the smell test, make sure everything looks right. We don't have any funky numbers in market rent or anything like that that are summing up a total row. And then back in our output, we have a clean output of all the units. So I don't know if this is right, but I have these currently sorted first by unit type and then by unit number. I suspect you'd want all the 1-1s together and so on. But if we wanted to do it the other way, they could be
I
sorted
want it by unit type and then square footage.
Then square footage.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't care about the unit number. Because the unit number on different complexes is all over the place, units by building or whatever. It doesn't matter to us. What matters first is the unit type, because that's the first sort. Second by square footage, because say there's a 1-1 that's 730 and a 1-1 that's 800. I want the 730 1-1s lumped, then the 1-1 800s lumped, etc. So put that on your notes. Change that sort to unit type first. There you go. And then square foot second. Yeah, and that's the magic formula for us for our underwriting.
Okay.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I wouldn't have caught that for a while. So.
Okay. So then
Okay,
again,
now you copy this.
I'm sorry.
You copy this from top left to bottom
Yep.
right. Do you copy the header too, or just the data?
In theory, just the data. Actually,
Okay.
probably just the data. If you look, the way this works, there are actually formulas in a lot of these top cells. That is what generates the data below. And so if you copy it, you probably will pull the formulas over and it'll get a little funky. So this actually, this range to copy, this jump to link, just to help you, once you click on it, it will actually automatically select the proper range. And you can see it goes right down to the bottom of 71. If there were 200 units, it would go down to 200. So once you click that link, it's going to jump you over to the right tab and have it already selected. So you can just copy straight from there and not even have to worry clicking and dragging.
I love that, David, because when I go to select things, such a challenge selecting things. I don't know what it is. So that's awesome. I like that there a lot. So you just do right click copy.
Yep.
So if we keep back to the instructions each time and just clicking on each one, so we copy that. All right.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so then we're going to go back into the model. Let me just take out this. Oh, for the record, I guess, just another workflow thing. Control, if you hold control and hit an arrow, you guys may already know this, but it'll jump to the end of a data set. So for example, if I'm right here and I hit control down, it's going to jump to the bottom of that continuous data. If I hit right, it's going to jump to the right of that continuous data, up, left, so on and so forth. You can combine that then with shift. If you hold shift and arrow key, that's going to select. But if you combine that with control, if I hold control shift and I right arrow and down arrow, that's going to select over and then select down. That's just a helpful kind of pro tip for making big selections like this that are hundreds of rows long that take you forever to drag or move your slider down or whatever.
The problem is I always forget the quick keys, and then I use a Windows machine at home and a Mac at work, and then I am constantly, I can't sort between the two. The Macs are different the way their key codes go, and so.
Yeah, I have the same struggle. My set PC is a Windows machine, and I have a laptop that's a Mac, so I have to flip my brain back and forth on all the shortcuts.
So David, after you copy and come up with a streamlined list of rental, will you have some kind of a summary concept of this type of record is this number of pounds and so forth?
Well, you have to do the summary. What?
Is there a summary count of the unit types and order? Will you be outputting a summary count of all the unit types?
We can certainly add that as well. So that is in here, that's in the output summary. You can see the 1-1, we have 22 of those, and the 2-1, we have 3 of those. We're not pasting that data over into the model, but if we want to put that somewhere, we could. For the time being, we're just putting this, a little more raw data, and then in the model we can count or sum using formulas.
Yeah. Okay.
But then we have kind of the raw clean data, so to speak, by unit.
Yes.
But then it's easy to say, you know, sum the rent column if this column says 1-1.
Yes.
So the last step, we're going to take that and we're going to put it into here. Paste this here, and then now you can see this has updated, says 1-1-2-1. Gives you your totals.
That's good.
Questions? What do you think, Charmaine? Think you can master it if we do some practicing?
Yes. I'd have to practice it, yes. I'm sorry, I'm talking without turning on the mic.
I know it takes so long to turn off the mute and then one word, yes. Yeah. But they need to do something about the mute button because still to this day, we all can't get the mute button right. So we need some technology there. All right, so I think, give me some guidance here. I think we're letting David go, and but before you go, David, because I think we still have 30 minutes, we can do some practicing, and so I think we should take. I think what we should probably do is the practice for the next 30 minutes should focus on the T12 because at this point I'm ruined for the old rent roll conversion, and so I don't think I want to practice it right now. I want to get David's version and make his the latest version beta and drop this into Anthrobank for the new downloads and start to practice on David's version of this thing.
All right.
And go from there. What do you think of that, David?
I think that's great. I would say the one caveat is these two purple tabs right now. So this prop 1 test,
Yeah,
this is all different than yours right now because the formulas have to be different to accept this data like this, as opposed to the other way. So you could still practice using the conversion tool. And if we feel good about it and we're ready to move forward with that, then I can go update the syndication simulator, the underwriting tool for all of the properties 1 through 8 or 1 through 9 or whatever to accept data in this way. But that will take an update to do that. This is only in my test environment 1 right now that I'm working on to accept the rent roll this way.
David, just a point of clarification for me. This working model is not sitting on my Google Drive. It's sitting on your Google Drive.
This one is in the shared folder that you and I have.
Is it? This one's in the shared folder?
Yep.
And you've been working straight off that?
Yeah, this is the David working copy. This is the one with those purple tabs in there.
Yeah. And which one of those go back to that shared folder again? Which one of those conversions, the rent roll converters are your?
This is the newest one right here.
So
the one that I could use.
I mean, I'm just going to put links to those the two working copies right this, and put that into the beta part of Anthrobank for people to download and use and start to use. If you guys are willing, that is slick. That's the slickest rent roll I've ever seen.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and
I guess you all can be the beneficiary of in various jobs I've had this exact problem to solve a number of times where you have data this way and this way, and there's a handful of formulas that can get to be pretty lengthy, but solve it and then save a whole bunch of time. From what I gathered, it can take a long time to process one of these rent rolls. If you could do it in 5 minutes, that'd be a big speed up for you guys, hopefully.
And I suppose I could leave the current data version on Anthrobank for you to download if you want to. You know, what happens to us is our brain wants to keep working with the legacy model, right? So part of us goes, no, don't change it again. I was just getting used to this one. You know, does anybody want that legacy left there and me make a separate download for these newer ones? What do you think, Darnell? Do you think you could jump to the, I'm asking a lot of you to go, oh, by the way, here's a new test version. Now jump to it. That's actually a lot to ask of users, okay? So, I mean, it's okay for you to say, hey, leave that. Let me take some jumps. You're going too fast for me here. It's making this very difficult for me. What do you think, Darnell? What's your thoughts?
I think I'd rather, I mean, since this is the new ones where we're going, is to focus on that and to master that.
As early as possible.
What do you think, Charmaine?
I think the same. I just learned it, but I have to unlearn it and just go with the flow.
Max, I'll say the one thing, this will work for this format of rent roll. If there's a different format though, we would ultimately need to get into that clean format, 1 row per unit. So
You're giving us a warning that, hey, I've seen a few rent rolls and it works for those, but I may see some ones that it doesn't work for. That's kind of what you're saying?
yeah, that is, this one is kind of vertical and horizontal. It will work for that. If you get one that's much cleaner and just horizontal, 1 row per unit, it may not work totally as expected. And so then if we override the old underwriting model and you only have the new one, you have no way to process the other type.
So we should learn, keep it.
Oh, the interesting thing you're saying is you've built this for the rough road, but if we get to some smooth road, this thing may not work.
I think we can make it work. I only built it with this type of data in mind, though. This type of data. If you all can give me some more funky rent roll, I can keep tweaking it so that hopefully we could get one converter to work for all. But it'll just depend on what the data looks like. I've not put eyes on too many of them.
Okay.
What about the one we were looking at, Darnell?
The bottom line is my
What you
recommendation.
say, something?
What about the rent roll that you were looking at this week?
That one's kind of funky. That's like what they're talking about
funky.
now, where the
Yeah.
cells merge and things are not, and it's not as clean as the one we used to look at.
Darnell, you see that file folder you made, number 20?
Yeah.
Is it in there by chance?
I think I put it in there. Hold on.
Is it Franklin Street?
No, it's not.
Because I want you to upload it to that folder right now.
Okay. Let's see. Upload it to the 20 folder.
Yeah, put it in number 20. And David, I'm making sure that that whole underwriting Thursdays is shared with you right now. So you should see an email right now, David, and it's going to be in file folder 20 or now.
Yeah, that
rent roll.
Yeah, the rent roll and the T12 are in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the ones?
Yes, that's it.
So this would work for this model because it's got a unit on a row and then some revenue lines vertically. And we could do this one live if we want to.
Do it. I think we're ruined now. I don't know what we're going to work on for the next 24 minutes, but this has got me.
So I keep making the mistake of not making a copy of my own template and then having to go back. Okay, so this is the correct one, is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So we'll take all of this data. So I'm going to go through the instructions each time just so you guys kind of get used to looking at that way, because I suspect that's what you'll be doing, jumping back and forth. So
Yes, please. Yes.
I don't know if it would be helpful. I could keep this. It might be less help than.
No, it's okay. We can click back to the instruction tab each time. I think that's a good protocol for us. We'll do that.
Okay.
That's very
Okay.
important.
So,
Actually.
what was that?
It's very important. This one that you're showing.
Yeah.
It gives you an overall idea what's the overall process.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as always, stop me or pause me if it would be helpful. But so we're going to copy the rent roll data that we have and paste it in cell A3. So we're going to go right here. Take all this and copy. Paste it here. Am I filtered? Is this filtered? Well, we'll try to paste values and see if that works out. Aha. Well, this is good to know. There's a lot more columns on this one than I'm used to. Yeah, because I don't have enough columns to capture all that.
Interesting. So you've got a set number of hide columns. So if they load that thing full of columns, it uses up your hide number.
Yeah, we could modify that easily to have
Sure.
200 columns for ones that are like this.
Sure.
I think I could relatively easily add this. I'm not going to spend too much of everybody's time doing this, but if I can do it really simply.
Yeah, because what I would suggest we do when we get off the call and this week is, we'll have you continue with your model. I'm gonna link yours to the AnthroBank download and download some to this file folder. And so this would be a perfect one for us to play with, given that it's given.
Yeah.
I know Darnell was texting me about it, going, what do I do if they're across? Some of the cells are merged across columns. David.
Yeah. So what this is, there's some vertically merged columns somewhere. I'm not sure where. Horizontally merged, it'd be fine, but these are vertically merged somewhere. Look at the bottom.
Honestly, I've never seen merged like this. This is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is a fairly peculiar one, which I'm glad we have it. So let's try this.
It doesn't think there's anything merged because there's nothing to unmerge.
Well, so we can get around it this way. We'll see if it works. So if we copy this, I don't know how often y'all do this, but there's a paste values, which is essentially just going to extract the text or the numbers from cells. It's not going to take anything else, merging, formatting, borders, colors, fonts, anything like that. So it's Control-Shift-V is that, or if you don't remember that, it's just right here, paste special and values only. There's the shortcut if you ever forget. So that will allow us to paste in here, and that's how that got so wide. So the hide is going to mess up because it has some of these in here. Let's see if it does.
Curious what it does, though. This is cool. I love this.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Because your model assumes what it's going to hide is to the right, but there's things buried in the middle of it that it wants to hide.
Yeah.
Huh?
So, but that's fine. We can manually hide those.
Okay.
So this is going to get a little bit trickier because I only have my drop down up to Y, but let's just take these out. I'll just hand key them in. So unit is funky, but it's actually an A despite the header being in B. Does that make sense? Everybody, you want that where the actual data is. So the data here is in A. All the way back over here to A. unit type. This is where your shift scroll wheel is going to help you a lot going left and right. And so these are in column C for unit type. Tenant is in F. Charge codes are in T. Amount W. And I'm going a little bit quicker here. Is everybody kind
Yeah,
of
go quicker here. It's all right. It's the
Okay.
third time.
Yeah. Square feet is E. Market rent is in M. Just making sure we had all numbers here. It looks like we do. And deposits in AM. So we may be working out just fine. Okay, so that jumps to the wrong one now, but we just did that. We put our columns in there. I'm going to go to the exclude column. That link is going to the wrong place again, but let's do this. I don't know if you guys ever do this, but you can just click and drag over here and freeze some columns to the left. That can help with this. Did everybody follow that? Just that if we want to see the first few columns here to know what we want to exclude, because our exclude is all the way to the right there. If you get this little hand icon on the split between your spreadsheet and the row numbers, then you can click and drag that and it'll freeze those to the left, and it'll still scroll vertically with you, but it'll stick horizontally. So let's exclude this. See what the rest of this data looks like. Alignment won't matter here as long as it's reading it as a number. It'll show you. A helpful, forgive me if I'm doing too many of these, there's a helpful formula called isNumber that it will just tell you if Excel's going to read it or Sheets is going to read it as a number. So if you do this, for unit, it shouldn't matter because we're not doing any math to that. But if it returns false, it is not reading this as a number. It's reading this as a text string. So the other way you can do it, if I say this plus 1, it does convert it to a number. But so it has some intelligence built in. We'll leave that as it is for now. Sorry about the tangent. So the exclude column. Let's go here. This all still looks relatively clean. Okay, future residents. Let's go ahead and get rid of these. Get rid of all this. Let's get rid of this to make sure we don't total that up by mistake. Okay, let's go to our rent map.
It might be because you added columns that now it's not showing up in your next tab.
That's why I do this over here so that I can do formulas on only these and I don't have to rely on the data over there.
Okay.
I don't know why. I wonder if these messed it up. And I'm gonna have to fix this formula. But all in all, I think that worked relatively well.
Yeah, you're close.
Let's see if the unit, yeah, some columns just got off somewhere, but
Yeah.
making it wider is relatively simple. I just need to go clean up a couple of those things, but I think that should work fine. So particularly if you have ones that are in a different rent rolls that are in a different format, that is, they don't go vertically at all. Maybe they're all horizontal, and they look a little bit more like this unit type tenant, deposit, whatever. We can either modify this model to take more types or just make a second converter, and you just go to whichever converter you need. We could come up with some, clever or more descriptive names of them that we can say, oh, this is a vertical horizontal rent roll, or this is a, type 3 rent roll, or whatever. You all can kind of come up with that vernacular. Max, I can kind of leave that to you. We can name stuff whatever we want to.
Okay.
And also, before anything else, there could be some misalignment of the column header and column data, like what happened earlier. The name of the header is on a different column, while the data is on a different column too. So you may want to do some kind of clerical work to align them so that it's easier.
Do you mean like when the header was misaligned with the data?
Yes.
Yeah.
If it can be done, of course.
Yeah, we could. We'll just have to have a lot more variables to input, because where that header row is in a different row sometimes on the 5th row, or sometimes it's on the 8th row or the 10th row. And then how offset that is will be different if it's offset 1 column or if it's offset 2 columns. So it could be done, but I suspect that would be getting a little too specific, and then the converter would work for one and only one type of software output.
That's what I mean. I think before we use the converter, we could look at some of these minor adjustments that we can do manually. For this.
Oh, I see what you mean. You could just go ahead and move those things over in the rent roll file. Yeah. That file was in an XLS file still, which Google Sheets / Google Drive will still let you edit. It may help that merged field issue if we converted it to a Google Sheet too first. So little things like that. I can put some troubleshooting tips in here as well as we come across those.
Yes, that's very important.
David, is there a way for you to give us somehow some instructions on those quick tips, like the shift, and shift scroll wheel?
I've actually got a whole list of things going. One of the things you and I talked about were some small tips and tricks training document things. So I've already got a list of them going.
Very important.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're rolling toward the end here. How about questions on your mind, or are we all a little overwhelmed right now for the moment?
No, I was going to say, and you may already be thinking about this, Max, regarding the question about the templates. It may be best until we get everything sorted out, or rather, once David figures out if he can have it so that we can use it regardless of the rent roll, that we keep them both right now, so that we run into a situation where it's cleaner, we can just use the old template.
So if you go into, just on that note, I know you guys know this because I can see you've been inside of Anthro, but I'm hoping Anthro gets easier for you to use. And let's see if I can do this. Go to Anthro. Anthro, that's Latin for human, Adler.
Anthropology, I know. Anthropology, the study of man.
So Anthro Bank, is a bank of humans. we keep our people in the bank. That's how important they are. So let's see. Let's pretend we're a student here. So we log into Anthro Bank. It's only because I'm switching users. I think I actually have this fixed, you guys. Just go to MFG, right? Go to the Multifamily Geeks, scroll down to the log back in. But here's the tools and resources tab. So right now, here's the current underwriting template. This is the legacy.
Okay.
This is the beta, the new one. And I think you're going to end up with a third one down here, the super beta. The super beta and the rent roll converter. Just, download the old one if you want it, or stick with this one if you want that one, Darnell. And then I'll put a new one in here, a beta linking to David's. And I'll do a live link, so as he keeps updating it, it'll keep being refreshed.
Yeah.
I know you guys, that's a little bit intimidating given we're learning some advanced spreadsheet techniques, but
We
so
just have
that's
to
pretty cool.
we just have to put in the right versioning number also, so that we could keep track. With
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I hear you. Yes, I will do my best. Yes, Adler, I will do my best.
And also, David, the rent roll that you used to do the demonstration, if we could have that also as a way to practice initially, it could go.
Yeah, sure.
David,
you.
will you upload a copy of that to that number 20 folder that you were just looking in? The Darnell number 20
Darnell
folder?
Burroughs.
Yep, yes.
Yes.
And that way that one will be in there too. I think that one was Lexington or something. I forget what it was.
I had 3 of them that I practiced with. It was Lexington, one other one, and one called Vinings.
Okay. Those are all real properties we've underwritten. That on those rent rolls, Adler, I spent 2 hours adjusting them manually.
Oh God, no. No wonder you're having hair already on your head.
That's why my hair's growing back. The Rogaine is working. And Darnell laughs because he can grow hair like crazy. I can see that right there. All right, let's wrap this up. I think that's good enough. We're going to all need some rest tonight. I don't know if you're going to underwrite anything tonight, but over the next few days this weekend, give yourself an hour to go in there and start getting back into it, okay? Because this is a little bit tough on this one. So, okay. Switch back over, unmute, and switch back over to the L10, and let's go down and do the rating. David, this is directly from EOS. You know, we rate the meeting, not the speaker. And the way the system works is if it's an 8, 9, or 10, you don't have to say anything. But if it's a 7 or below, you want to say what you're thinking so you can get that out there and we can think about it for later. You probably can't address issues during a meeting like this, but at least you can get them on people's radar for getting back to them.
Yeah.
All right, type your name and your number. And then unmute. And I'm reading mine first because I typed it first on the list. I'm Max. I'm 10. Darnell?
10. Adler
10.
10. Adler's 10.
Charmaine is 10.
Who'd we miss? Did we miss anybody?
Yeah, I would say a 10
Iroh.
too. The analogy that comes to mind is like camping. Oftentimes, your experience camping is directly proportionate to the tools that you have access to. David, you are. I thank you for everything that you do because you
Yeah.
give us the tools that allow us to do what we do. So appreciate it.
Mhm.
Bless, thank you.
And Max and I are trying to prioritize different things. So I'll be on some of these calls, but even when I'm not, feel free to, if it's just a rock or a question or something to
Oh,
throw
all right.
out. Max and I are working on prioritizing what those things are. So the more you guys speak up, and if you say like this one thing takes me 2 hours to do very consistently, there's probably a way we can fix that. Rent roll jumped to the top of our list, but whatever those things are, keep putting a tickler in Max's ear, and he and I will make sure we're constantly adjusting our priority list. And at some point, we'll probably show you guys what that priority list is, and so you guys can kind of vote on those things up or down, just to make sure that you
Very
guys
good.
are actually using it. We're saving you the most time as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Max. Thank you, David.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, David.
Great to meet you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys tomorrow night.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay,
See you there.
manana.